So last week we discussed the importance of being whole in relationships.
And this week we are covering some more practical applications of being whole in relationships. Join us for part 2 of Becoming Whole in Relationships starting now. Woo! Hi, I'm Josiah.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is One True Pair,
the not-so-common sense guide to godly relationships. We wouldn't be a Christian dating blog if we didn't talk about a very popular verse in Song of Solomon when it comes to the idea of waiting to date. In Song of Solomon it says, "Do not stir up nor awaken love until it pleases." I think many people go wrong with this. They assume that as soon as their friends start dating, that means that they should start dating. Or as soon as they like someone, that means that they should start dating. Because obviously, that's the right season, right? Maybe not so much. But I think many people go wrong in this area because they stir up love and they're like, no, but I love them. When in reality, they just want their fulfillment from someone else instead of from God in the first place. When you find yourself at a spot where you ever think that if I only were dating this person, if I only had this, then I would be happy, then you know you're not getting your fulfillment from God. And many people, whenever they're looking for fulfillment in another person, they quickly bend on what they believe in. So they jeopardize their boundaries and what they knew they held as true because they think that they'll only get fulfillment when the other person is happy and when they feel like, oh, well, yeah, it made me happy too. But it's really an unhealthy place to be emotionally, spiritually, physically. It's not healthy in any way when people bend on their boundaries just because they think that they'll get fulfillment from it.
Being made whole also then has to do with boundaries. If you've been in past relationships and gone through past relationships where maybe boundaries were not respected as they should be, a lot of people when going into the next relationship will blow through those same boundaries twice as fast because they're still broken. You know, if you allow God to kind of heal those instead, because boundaries really, I'm sure we'll talk about this later in some other video as well. If this is something also that you'd like to hear more on, please,
let us know.
Let us know in the comments below. What does this look like practically? Let's say you waited this and this long to hold hands or to kiss in your last relationship, and this time it's like half as long. There's something at the boundaries that's not quite right. If you're a whole person, you're going to want to set up boundaries because you're going to want to protect yourself and the person that you're dating. You're going to want to stay whole. So boundaries can also be a good indicator of if there's still some healing that needs to be done, if there's still some stuff that needs to maybe be taken care of with Holy Spirit in His right time.
And boundaries can also be physical, but they can also be emotional. Sometimes people set up walls and they're not willing to share certain details because they still harbor a lot of hurt in those areas in their lives. So once you let God heal those and break down those walls, even though it's really hard and it may be super difficult to get past that, that's when you can fully be healed and you can enter your new relationship whole.
So that would be a big indicator if there's still some healing that needs to be done in order for you to progress as a whole person to your next relationship.
Another thing that people also do is they shut down when people try to learn more about them. So in a relationship, there's many people that assume if they really knew what I thought, if they really knew how I felt, they wouldn't like me anymore. So many people shut themselves down and they won't share who they are with the other person. If you're dating someone who thinks that who God created you to be is not likable, then you're dating the wrong person. You shouldn't be with someone who doesn't treasure every part that God created you to be. It's also the opposite of people that are like, hey, I don't want us to discover more about this other person because I like what I already know, but I'm kind of concerned about the rest of them.
Too good to be true.
Right? And that's not a safe place either, because if you're not willing to learn about every aspect in someone's life that God created them to be, you can't grow in that. In one of my classes in school, I learned about relationships as an onion, and every layer goes deeper into knowing the person. And there's many people who try to learn a little bit about a person, but they only go into like one little area of the onion, and they go deeply in that area, and they're like, this part of the person is so cool, they're so good at this, and they love this. But in order to have a real relationship, you have to have a little wedge in every area of the onion, because you have to know about like
superficial.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't just know about the top layer, because that's the basic thing. That's what everybody else knows about them. Once you get down to the core is when you get to the perception of themselves. Once you get to that point, you really can't know more about a person. Go deeper with people in every area of their lives. If you're afraid to ask questions, plan it in your mind. Be that person that counts down in your head. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now I'm going to ask. If you have to be that person, do it. But ask questions. Learn more about people. Share more about yourselves. Obviously, that comes with limits too. You don't want to be on the first date and just be like, so, I perceive myself as weird. Like, you probably don't want to do that. That's also not wise.
You could, but
that comes back with pacing and timing and knowing the right time to share something. But if you've been dating this person for a few years and all you ever talk about is the fact that both of you like to go bowling, that's probably not good.
Probably need to get to know them a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
I think relationships are really are really very simple thing. I think what makes relationships complex is the stuff that people hide behind. Like Bethany was saying, basically, well, if you really knew me, then you wouldn't love me, and like the walls that people put up. I think that's what really complicates relationships. I think relationships are really supposed to be very simple. In essence, are very simple. Ruffalo Dollar did a really nice video about this too, with the I need to know that basically that you're saying you're ready to marry. Maybe we'll link to that below. That you're saying that you're ready to marry this person. You don't even know them. Kind of going through like all these different questions of like, do you know the answer to any of these questions? Do you really know this person? So I think it's really important to not know somebody just very specifically in one area or even superficially, but rather to get to know them deeply. And I mean, you can't get to the inner layer of the onion without like going through the outer layers. So like you get to know somebody. It's a process. Psychiatrists say that it takes 3 months to even multiple years for you to actually really get to know somebody. That you really don't know somebody until you've spent years with them. And so I think that's also a really important way to look at it too. Because if you think oh, we've been dating 5 weeks and oh my goodness, I know everything about. It's a really dangerous place to be, because if you think of it like a foundation of concrete, you can't pour the concrete and then start putting in furniture. You gotta wait for it to set, right? So like in the same way that you're like discovering who this person is and getting to know them as an individual, as a unique person, as a valuable person, you have to. There's got to be like a little bit of settling in between. It's a process that takes time. Again, back to the seasons that you're in. Again, you can't get to know the innermost, like the deepest level of that person without getting to know them first superficially. So it's a process of getting to know somebody, but don't be satisfied with just knowing somebody if they're on just very superficial things, like Bethany was saying, things that anybody else would know about them too.
If you are in a relationship, you think, oh, I'm a whole person and I'm dating someone and they're a whole person, but you never get to know the other person, then you never can achieve wholeness as a couple, because you have to be able to know each other, to know your strengths and your weaknesses. You have to know every part in order to be able to complement each other and to help each other. So you can't be whole in your relationship and to build each other up if you don't know everything about that other person.
One of the many ways that God will heal you or bring healing to you is in community. Being around a lot of like-minded people, specifically like-minded believers who are there to encourage you and cheer you on and really to pour into you as well. Because a lot of people isolate themselves if they feel like they've been through a traumatic experience or through a traumatic relationship or a traumatic breakup, whatever. If it's like a big deal for them, a lot of people isolate themselves. And the best possible solution for that, the best possible antidote, so to say, for that is to be in community.
Fear isolates, but grace brings in community. So if you're living in an isolated life where you're like, I'll never be good enough, I messed up this, you're living in fear because you don't believe that God created you to be the person that you are and to be fully enabled by God's grace. So grace brings people together. So if you're not included in a good Christian community right now, I encourage you, please find one, because it's so crucial in any kind of relationship that you have other people there who are able to check you and make sure, hey, this isn't completely okay. You seem upset about this. You need people to balance off of.
I mean, ultimately, encouragement, that's also something that should be fulfilled in this relationship. But, sometimes where one's coming out of maybe a situation where one still is needing to be made whole, the encouragement from a community is so helpful. They not only see, hey, this is what you're going through, how can I help you? And it's okay, it gets better. But, also people that will, call them out of where they are and call them to where they're called to be.
If you're someone who's like, oh, I'm already healed, God has already made me whole, how can you be a good community member to the people that aren't healed? Find ways to encourage people and to uplift them. Look for the people who are broken and see how you can be the difference in their life.
We'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you currently see that you're, in a good place and that you're whole, that you're in a good relationship with God, or whether that's something that you're still working towards. And if you have any questions about dating or about building godly relationships, we'd love to hear from you.
So that's all we've got for today's episode, but remember to let God heal you first and to stay in a good community of people who will uplift you. So remember, guys, keep calm and date on
wisely. And smash that subscribe button. See you next week.